Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Quo, the podcast where we redefine success, lead with heart, and challenge everything we thought we knew about what life should look like. I'm your host, Stacey Luces, and today's episode is one that's both deeply personal and profoundly powerful. As many of you know, I talk a lot about redefining success, leading with authenticity, and living beyond the boundaries that society has placed on us, and sometimes that we place on ourselves. But today, I want to go a little bit deeper. As some of you may know, my brother has Down syndrome. His name's Junior, but we call him Junie. And growing up, especially in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, which is where I grew up, so he's about maybe 41, I saw firsthand what it means to be underestimated. Now, he's the middle kid of 5 kids, and it's me, my sister, him, and then 2 other sisters. So we totally had a protective circle around him growing up. But we also saw the challenges firsthand with lack of resources, lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of empathy for someone like him growing up, not only on an island, but in an island where, you know, as a population, we certainly had our fair share of folks with that, but no true structure for them. I saw the labels, the assumptions, and the quiet exclusions. But most of all, and most importantly, I saw brilliance. Right? I saw joy, resilience, and so much untapped potential that never fit the mold that society termed success. And on a fun note, remember I said he had 4 sisters. So if we were going on a date and we got dressed up and we came downstairs and he said nothing, we went and changed. But if he saw us and he was like, damn, we kept that outfit on and we went on our way. Because the thing about these individuals is that they are the most truthful, honest, loving, heartfelt individuals that you will ever come into contact to. That's why today's conversation matters so much, and that's why I'm thrilled to have my guest, Sherry Henry. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. Yay. Thank you so much for having me, Stacey.
You're welcome. Sherry is a powerhouse. She is the CEO of HabCenter here in Boca Raton, Florida. She's an award-winning nonprofit leader, and she's not only, in my opinion, redefining what inclusive leadership looks like, but she's walking the walk every day with neurodiverse individuals, with people living through mental health challenges, and with teams. And I've met many of her team members. They had a ribbon cutting, which we'll talk about a little bit. And they are building spaces that are thoughtful, that are productive, that are powerful, but most importantly, where dignity isn't an afterthought. It's the starting point. So we'll talk about kind of the movement that's happening around this and why there's so much more impact and why there's so much more perspective. But we'll also get a look at behind the scenes, how Sherry navigates leadership, both of her team, both of her stakeholders, to include not only her clients, but also the parents and the loved ones who are entrusting HabCenter with their most precious individuals to lead a more purposeful life. So we're going to get a peek behind that, because a lot of this work, while powerful, can also be exhausting and draining if we're not careful. So Sherry, I'm going to kind of open the mic and turn it over to you, but I want to say that your work for me was so inspiring. Now that you've heard a little bit about my background, but I do think that for those listening, it is a blueprint for not only each individual within their families, how they can do this, but folks in the community that may be volunteering. And then on a larger purpose, for me, I'm a policy girl. How do we influence policy and sort of make sure that the right eyes and ears are on the work that you want to do and the purpose that you serve in the world? So before we do all that big stuff, I like to do the micro, right? Because it starts with you and your light and who you are and how you show up. And when we were talking and sort of sharing a little bit about your bio before the episode, you mentioned going through a very traumatic accident that sort of made you redefine not only who you were physically, right, and the determination to bounce back, but kind of redefine what you were going to do with your talents in the world. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So, you know, it's interesting, Stacey. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited.
Looking at it in hindsight and retrospect, I see it as a redefining moment, but going through it, I didn't. You know, going through it for me was just, I had no choice. I had to, this is what I have to do now. I was the victim of a hit and run accident, which broke my ankle in 5 different places. I mean, my orthopedic surgeon said this is pretty much like the worst ankle break I've ever seen in my career.
Yeah.
Right. And fractured a few of my vertebrae. And after the surgery, you know, he looked at me, he was like, listen, you are not going to walk again.
Wow.
And when I say that hit me, excuse me, like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
But as heavy as it was hearing that, I don't think for a second I accepted it.
Sure.
Like even in the moment of, oh my gosh, I'm literally sitting here. I can't move by myself. I can't do anything. I don't think even for a moment going through it, I accepted it. But it was a very, very dark place and a dark time for me.
Yeah. Takes the wind out of you.
It takes the wind. It took the wind out of me.
Yeah.
And it actually happened like probably about a month before my birthday. So here I was on my birthday, really sitting down. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything for myself. I can't dress myself. You know, I literally am dependent on every single person around me to help me. I lost my independence because I had to move back home with my parents because that's the only way that they would release me from the hospital. I had to have somebody a caretaker.
Yeah.
And so my whole life had turned upside down. So going through it, I really didn't even realize it was a defining moment. But I had just really settled in my mind that I had to be the anomaly. If this doctor had ever seen somebody walk that he doesn't think is going to walk, it's going to be me.
Yeah. And I feel that inner resolve and that inner fire. Like we all have that. We all have this latent power within us to do big and bold things, but also to rise in spite of it all.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of us, including myself, people listening probably know my near-death experience. There is, and I want to ask if it's the same for you, there is Stacey before and Stacey after. And I'm sure there's Sherry before and Sherry after.
Yeah.
And what had to change for you in the Sherry after to find that grit and that determination to really prove that doctor wrong?
Well, you know, I am going to say my faith.
Yeah.
Is really the core of who I am and the core of what drives me.
Yeah.
I really look back at that time now and think I was struggling with committing my life to God, right? I was struggling with that because I was at the place where, you know, I was young, I was doing whatever, you know, hang out, I'll get to God when I'm ready. And, you know, I felt like I went through that challenge for me to really stop and take stock of my life and say, you know, am I actually living purposefully?
Sure.
You know, you talk about neurodiversity. My whole entire lifetime has been advocating for this population. Like I am living my purpose at this point as CEO of the HabCenter, you know, advocating for people that need services because it's what I saw growing up. I have people in my family that are neurodiverse. My dad had an invisible disability, an autoimmune illness his whole life. And I can tell you that I had to carry that as a secret, as a burden, because never once did he want somebody to feel sorry for him or to be, you know, to show him special treatment because of his illness. And
but there's also shame. I think culturally and generationally, we are taught, and we're about the same age, Gen X's, right? We're taught to not talk about these things, to not ask about these things. And I think that, of course, generationally, we hope these things change and improve, right? Like our kids are going to do better and their kids and so on and so forth. But I find that even now, there's a lot of stigma and stereotypes and shame around any person that's not, in quotation, normal.
Yeah. So culturally, I'm going to say that's what I experienced in Jamaica.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But for my dad, it was pride.
Yeah.
It was definitely not shame.
Like, I don't want any handouts.
It was, he took the responsibility of being the provider for his family so seriously that he went to work in pain. You know, he had to be on his last drop of whatever he was dealing with to actually stop and take care of himself. I mean, I couldn't even tell my grandma that daddy was sick. You know, like that, it was just his pride. And so,
and I feel like it's a lot of responsibility for us.
It was a lot of responsibility for me as a child. I was like, wait, but I need to talk to my friends. I can't deal with this by myself.
And to hold the emotion. And for me, I was the eldest, and there's an 8-year gap between me and Junior. And my gosh, holding the responsibility, and sometimes I will be honest, the burden of being the third parent. It sounds like you had a little bit of that too, where we are expected to be very adult about certain things like this. And it really plays into this hyper independence that as adults we exhibit, and we are ambitious and successful, and we will grind it out. But deep inside, we're still kind of performing at that level where I don't want anybody to know the inside of the sandbox.
100%. And let me tell you, I was way in my adulthood when I let go that burden of, I need my community. I need to talk to
I need
people.
an ugly cry every now and then.
And I had literally said to my dad, I'm like, Daddy, I don't have to keep your secret. Like, you want to keep it because you're proud, but I need support. I need people praying with me. I need people checking in on me, you know, because as much as you're living it, I'm also living it too. And I was an adult when I finally said that to my father. And I'm telling you, my whole life was about caring for him. And what I saw for people with disability was the pride that they have. So I never aligned with my community of stigmatization and shame and ostracizing them and putting them aside.
So
I've always been an advocate, right? To the point where I had to learn when not to advocate.
Right.
I had to learn, okay, wait, not because you can help this person, that means that they need your help, you know? I had to learn to ask.
There's a commercial. I don't know if you've seen it. It's with a young lady, a young woman, and she has Down syndrome. And she's in a bar.
I've seen it.
So she's in a bar, and she's like, you look at me and you don't think I want to drink, or you look at me and think I don't want to have sex, or you look at me and you think I don't want to try surfing, or whatever the things were. And even me, who spent 40 plus years in these communities talking, doing Special Olympics, like always advocating like you, right? Because it's so close to our hearts. I felt my own biases in that commercial. I felt my own uncomfortable sense of, wow, even I'm underestimating them. And it was and we have to be honest with ourselves when things like this happen. Like, we can't be like, oh, I know it all, and, you know, brush it off. You have to sit with that discomfort that, oh, another layer of myself was revealed that I have to work on. Tell me about how that plays in when you do tours of the HabCenter. I guess tell people what the HabCenter is, but also I'm sure you've seen people have those aha moments, because I had it when I walked into your workroom, and I heard the projects they were working on, and we chit-chatted a little bit with them, but they were like, we're busy. They quickly put us back in form. But what does that feel like as a leader to kind of see that transformation and that light bulb go off for other people that are underestimating still, even though we're in the work?
So the HabCenter provides empowerment opportunities for individuals with development differences, disabilities, mental health challenges. And we do that through our vocational training program in our manufacturing center and our plant nursery. And we also have a very robust internship program with master's and bachelor's level interns that offer mental health counseling, occupational therapy, special education. And we also provide programs in education, art, and recreation for our clients. And we recently launched a STEAM program, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
I love that.
And I want to first say that I am so privileged to have the team that I have at the HabCenter.
A wonderful team.
The employees that are 110%
They're your warriors,
committed to the client's well-being, to leading with compassion and empathy, to respecting and showing the clients respect, to helping them gain their independence. I wouldn't be able to be out in the community having these conversations with you if I didn't have a really amazing group of people to work with. So first, I want to say thank you to my team. And our clients have taught me so much. Like you said, breaking down your own biases, because they're a part of what we called person-centered programming. Everything is individualized. So we're not telling them, okay, well, Stacey, you need to work on your anger management, and you need to work on your emotional regulation, and you need a job, and you need to...
Because then that's like judgment. That's,
exactly. They are a part of building what their program is.
Damn, I thought I was doing really good with the emotional regulation. I'm kidding.
Right? They're a part of what their program is.
So you see the uniqueness within them, and then extrapolating that, create avenues where they're supported with the needs that they have, but not singled out, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Everybody
so
has an
powerful.
individualized program. So some clients may want to work in the community.
Sure.
We have a program with our supported employment team that finds employers that have the need for the skills that they have a socially conscious, business model, and that are just willing to give them an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because what they are just people with limitations. They may have cognitive differences, emotional, psychological, mental, whatever it is, but they're just people with limitations that need an opportunity.
Yeah.
And they help us if we get to the place where society looks at this population as not a population to accommodate, but a population to use as a lens for innovation. Because I can tell you, when I think of something and I hear a client's perspective on that same thing, oh my gosh.
Wildly different.
Completely different.
Yes.
To the place where you don't even recognize it.
Yeah.
Like for my experience with breaking my leg in my accident, I was in a wheelchair for about 4 months. Couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything.
And then you understand how far you cannot go in a wheelchair.
And I understood, number one, the power of community and the importance of the community we serve, because I did not get through that by myself. I had praying parents, I had praying grandparents, I had praying great-grandparents, I had a community. My brothers would literally help me. I mean, it got to a point where I was still in a wheelchair, but I could get to my car so I could drive. But even to get to my car to drive, I needed support to get there. I needed support when I arrived where I was going. So like just the importance of the power of community. And it helped me to really look at life in a different way.
Yeah.
It's not just about I'm going here and that's my focus. No, you've got to really stop and look around and pay attention and enjoy the moment and acknowledge the people around you and really ask, are you okay? But actually listen for the answer and not listen to just respond. And we teach our clients those things, self-advocacy and self-empathy and self-esteem and self-value. And when you talk about emotional regulation, we don't focus necessarily on the action, like somebody is upset and they threw down, something on the floor.
Maybe the root cause.
And they stormed out of the building.
Yeah.
We're not drawing attention to the throwing the thing on the floor. We're really drawing the attention to you understood what you needed in that moment was to leave the room, right? And then we start with that. And then we dial it back to, okay, this happens again, how should you address it? How do you respond? Not scolding them, saying, why did you throw that thing down? You shouldn't be doing that. Because that's not really helping them to take ownership of their emotion. And that's not us acknowledging they were feeling this frustration and didn't know exactly how to handle it, but then actually did it in the right way. They left the room. They walked away. They went, to take a mental health break.
They gave themselves what they needed in the moment.
Exactly.
And that's like a powerful thing, instead of, I don't want to say sucking it up, but certainly letting someone else take control of how you're going to respond, whether that's putting you in timeout or something like that. I think one of the most powerful things for our family and our extended family with my brother, because listen, I'm one of 53 first cousins. You know, these Caribbean families are like... So I always joke that we didn't need any friends growing up. I was like, just phone a cousin. You know what I mean? But they all never treated him differently.
Nice.
They took him to the beach. I mean, honestly, he was one of 5 and it was all girls. He got nail polish just like us. We put his hair in ponytails. Like, Very nice. Looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe it was a bit much. But what I loved about the way that everybody treated him, and it's why I go out of my way, even in restaurants or if in Publix and they're bagging the groceries or anything like that, to just be normal. You know what I mean? And they light up. Yep. It's like, what do you need in that moment? Tell me about, because I love that you're coming in here sitting and like very quietly and well modulated telling us about the good things, but you have to be a freaking lioness to go into rooms, whether they're making economic plans or giving out grants or to advocate for the HabCenter. So tell me about that lioness and sort of the conversations and the ironclad resolve that have to show up as a leader and as a woman and as somebody that understands the impact that this could have, and sort of, I don't want to say compete for resources, but it's a little bit like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What does that look like?
You know, I am very comfortable in my own skin.
Sure.
And I take that wherever I go.
Right.
I mean, that's
self-mastery. That's really what it is.
I take that wherever I go. So even if I'm faced with adversity, because believe me, I have faced so much adversity when it comes to people not respecting you and valuing you and don't feel like you belong where you are.
Yeah.
That doesn't change my perception of myself.
Sure.
And I won't allow it because I'm the only one that has the authority over how I feel. You know, so if someone has done something that maybe I feel a certain way about, I still decide how I respond to it. Yeah. So when it comes to going into spaces and advocating for the HabCenter, number one, I just show up as me. I really believe in authenticity. And I'm actually learning a lot more about authenticity because, you know, I really felt for a while that authenticity was being able to, you know, speak your truth, to be honest about something, to share how you feel. But I have probably in the last 5 years realized authenticity is also vulnerability. And I can't look at what the stigma says about what a CEO should look like. Sure. You know, how a CEO should act. You know, I should be strong and I should be this and I should be, I'm all of those things, but I'm also very vulnerable. And so when I go into spaces and talk about the HabCenter, I share from that perspective. This is something that is true to my heart. Number one, I know that I have a lot to offer because we're doing amazing, exceptional work for a population of people that don't have anywhere else to go. Yeah. So I'm armed with that. I'm armed with this is how you can impact your community. I'm armed with this is the amazing group of people that are serving your loved ones and are producing this service for this population. And I'm also armed with my faith in myself and my faith in Jesus and my faith in my family, and knowing that even in those spaces, if I get no or I get somebody that's not receptive to me, that also does not define my worth. When I was doing my book tour a couple of years ago, I was in Canada and we were in a panel, and there were a lot of people in the audience. And, you know, of course we shared vulnerably about a lot of our challenges and what had made us into who we are and our version of how we got to be more authentic. And it is always going to be a work in progress, right? Like who we were even before this podcast started and who we will be after is going to be different just by virtue of us sharing space, right? And this 11-year-old came up to me, and he, what resonated with him is I shared something in my book about being bullied and like what happened.
And so he came up very quietly, very politely, and sat down and was asking me questions about his parents didn't know, but he was being bullied in school. And he said, what do you think I should do? And a part of me was uncomfortable because, you know, I wouldn't want anybody like telling my kid what to do. But I also, there was such a sense of maturity about him and like otherworldliness. You know, you meet some kids and you're like, oh my God, you're such an old soul, like jammed into this little body. Yeah. And what you're saying is exactly the same thing that is so powerful once you get it, which is when you are true to who you are and your purpose in the world and your core values, and these things are aligned, it's a bit impossible to not be doing the right thing for whatever that is, because you are staying true to who you are. And I think that I talk a little bit about this in coaching. We all fall sometimes into the trap of likability. Mm-hmm. Like we want to be liked.
Yes.
More than we want to like. It's okay to have healthy discourse.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay if you and I are sitting and I'm being a little bit stubborn and obtuse and you're coming in and trying to help me see the light or understand the perspective of the clients you work with. And for me to be like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I think that you holding true to that power, that inner core, is what sets you and other leaders apart, especially in the work that you're doing.
You know, my dad told me something. I remember probably I was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
He's not left me. And partly it was good, but also not so good. Right. Because he had said to me, Sherry, no matter where you go or what you do, there will always be someone looking for you to fail.
Yeah.
Give them something to talk about. Mm-hmm. And he armored me with that of, you know what, I can't rely on the people, everyone to believe in what I'm trying to do or everyone to buy into what I'm trying to do, because they may not. Mm-hmm. They may just want me to fail. So it armed me with the strength and the power and the resilience to know that I'm not going to have everybody as my friend.
Yeah. You know, that little saying with you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm like, oh my God, why are all of these old sayings so truthful?
You know what? Then you know what? Here on the reverse, I think it also made it very difficult for me to trust. Yeah. It made it very difficult for me to actually trust.
Because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop or for them to really not be authentically supporting me. You know, so it was great on one end because it really is, you know, a part of who I was, and I've held it. I mean, 7 years old, I'm, 40 something now.
But these lessons, because our formative years really, those first 10, right? And we create a lot of core rules around how we're going to operate in the world that in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, if we're not careful, they do not serve us at all for the life that we want to have. Yeah. And so a big part of self-mastery, personal power, all these sexy words, which really means knowing what your triggers are and your boundaries and what's your mindset around money or trust or community or neurodiversity, understanding and unraveling some of that conditioning not only takes years, but it takes effort and a commitment to being wrong a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Right? Like we will mess it up. I love what you said about, so here's a perspective talking about trust. I feel like a lot of us were taught that people have to earn trust. And so we start them yay low. And then as you prove yourself to me,
you build up. And I remember I had a mental shift. I did some executive coaching when I was at the Department of Homeland Security. And I still remember this guy, Thomas was his name. He's like, how about this? How about we start up top? I'm going to trust you that you know what you're doing and you have a good heart. You're not some mean individual, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm going to allow you a couple of chances to perhaps mess up a little bit. And then we'll go this way.
And then, of course, there's a limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to have an intervention or a discussion or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really, when I was leading the biggest teams and when I was doing big work, it took a lot of that pressure off of me to sort of be waiting for the other shoe to drop with people.
But, you know, when I look at that, I think about that from the construct of leadership, right?
Yeah.
If you are being a good leader.
Sure. And that also is...
You have to allow people to make mistakes.
Up. Yeah.
And
fail safely.
Have to also be authentic and vulnerable in the mistakes that you make.
Confess.
And share those mistakes, right? Because if you try to create this perception of, I'm a leader now, so I don't make any mistakes, but I'm coaching you and you made a mistake. No. You know, it's your leadership actually grows when you get the feedback from those mistakes.
Yeah.
Because if you're just doing this thing and you're like, you know, everything's great and nobody's saying anything to you and nobody's corrected you, are you really truly a leader? Or are you more an intimidator? That people aren't really coming to you and saying, hey, this is how I felt when this happened. This is how I felt when that happened. And then when he says, you know, you kind of go down, you got to allow people to make mistakes.
Make back up.
You know?
But also, right, when you talk about leadership, I think in very structured organizations, there's a hierarchy, right? And there's associative power and there's authoritative power and all of these things where I say you do. So really, oftentimes we will find leaders that are living by a different playbook than the expectations they have for especially middle managers or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it creates a culture, loosely a toxic culture, because if I'm not doing as I'm saying, I'm not walking the talk myself, that creates mistrust.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't trust you because your actions don't really marry up to what you're expecting from me, right?
Yeah.
A big shift I've observed, is when leaders leave roles where they had associative and authoritative power and move into either entrepreneurship or running their own business. And now suddenly they don't have that. And they figure out, wow, I kind of suck.
Yeah.
Tell me about 3, and I know you shared a little bit in your bio. Tell me 3 little tips you use, like with your team, to make leadership and sort of doing this work, which can be strenuous, I don't want to say fun, but different, but more aligned with the hard work that they're doing.
So, you know, psychological safety is really important in leadership.
Yeah.
And in order to be a good leader, you want to know that the people you're leading have the freedom to say how it's actually impacting them. I once saw leadership as this lens of, you know, making the right decisions, you know, doing the right thing, thinking about others. But then I now realize leadership isn't any of those things. It's really, how are you building the people up around you, and how are they building you up? Because it's not a one-sided thing. You know, you don't become a leader and then that's it, and then you build people up. No,
that's a title.
Exactly, that's a title. You're a lifelong learner as a leader. You're constantly growing, constantly getting feedback.
Right? It's symbiotic.
Yes,
it's sort
exactly.
of if you and worse yet, if you create an environment where your team does not trust you to receive their truth safely, then it just becomes an echo chamber.
Exactly.
And you just got a bunch of head nodders.
Exactly.
Right?
So, you know, at the HabCenter, we believe in the power of community.
Yeah.
It's very important. And I feel like that's where leadership is recognizing the interdependence that we have on each other. Like, I rely on the team to do their part. They rely on me to do my part. That's leadership. It isn't a one-sided thing. We rely on the clients to participate actively in their program. They rely on us to provide this exceptional program for them. They rely on us to look and advocate for them. We rely on them to actually follow through. You know, the families rely on us to keep them in their care and to treat them with empathy and respect. And I feel like those exchange of collaboration and that sense of community is how we do leadership at the HabCenter. And that's very different from an authoritarian top-down leadership. You know, collaboration is what we do. As much as if there isn't one decision, I have to make it as a CEO, what I tend to do is really get my team involved in that conversation. I try to identify all the people that will be impacted. We have, you know, go through the sense-making process of what works and what doesn't work, and what do we feel is the most informed decision, and we move in that light. Yeah. So that's one takeaway, is just really the importance in community. Like in my experience when I broke my leg, I could not have gone through that without my entire community, my family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, you name it. And so before I looked at independence as I was living on my own, doing my own thing, I got this, got it going on. Right. And then I realized, you know, my community and the interdependence of my community is my independence.
I will tell you that a truth bomb for many people, and probably even some of you listening to this, and this is a little example. Who picks you up at the airport, right? That's your person.
Yeah.
They watch the flight. Yeah. They sit in the parking lot in the dead zone. Yeah. They wait in the line and they get yelled at and they got to go turn around. But
that's my husband.
Yeah. The people that pick you up in the airport are your people.
Yep. He is 100% my people. And let me tell you, he is not coming without food.
Yeah.
And
that's my kind of guy.
And he cooks it himself.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, he's definitely my person.
I have a lot of talent, but cooking is not my forte. But what you're saying, and it blends into a deeper two things I want to lean on a little bit. One is when we talk about community, you know, there's the external community, so sort of like your chamber of commerce, people that you network with, do business with, clients, all of that stuff. And then there's like your inner community, right? Your people, your siblings, your friends, your pastor, like whatever religious institution you're affiliated with. These are your soul keepers to some extent, right? And when we get big dramatic diagnoses, whether it's cancer or, you know, the big ones, this is who we lean on for the meal train and the pickup from the hospital and the taking me to my treatments. And in your case, the in and out of the wheelchair and so forth. Some people don't have that.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of say it's not anybody's fault. Sometimes we just get too busy to nurture our inner community. Yeah. And even sometimes our partners or our children. Because we're so busy out here. I'll use myself as an example. Sometimes the mission of what we do is so imperative that we lose sight of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I did a retreat, a leadership retreat a year and a half ago, and it was 12 founders from around the country. So women like yourself, right? Executive director of March of Dimes, out in Austin, Texas, like all of these. Listen, you can't even stack them up. They were all burnt out. They all sort of struggled with self-confidence because they were doing big things and people were giving them a lot of money and had high expectations of them. Mm-hmm. They were dealing with always being accessible, available for everyone else, but the people that truly mattered, their family, that sort of self-sacrificial thing. Yeah. And the majority of them, and again, myself included at the time, our health was sort of the lowest of the low priority, right? Who needs sleep? I got to do this. Yeah. My to-do list, I've got 4. 4 calendars. How do you balance Sherry Inc., Sherry Incorporated, Inner You, and balance all of the demands for your time, your expertise, your heart, your, you know, not our cooking abilities, but you know what I mean? Yeah. How do you create balance in a world that just demands more the more that we give sometimes?
Well, I need a definition of what balance means.
Sure. I don't call it balance anymore. Let me just clarify. Integration. I just call it work-life integration.
There's no balance.
None.
Let me just be honest. Yeah. There is no balancing.
I love that we've gotten honest about that.
No, there is no balancing at all. There is sacrifice. And discernment. Yes, and discernment. There's sacrifice and discernment. And, you know, I have two amazing boys, my husband and my mom, my siblings.
Give them a shout out.
Yes.
Let's just say hi.
Love you guys. Jerry, Mommy, Ethan, Duke, Christoph, Shannon, Carisha, Keanu.
I love that.
So I love having a career.
Sure.
And I love being a mom.
Yes.
And what I know is that there's no harm that will come to my children to see their mom as a progressive businesswoman.
Yes.
And I've had many people who've given me different advice about, well, they're only this age once, and I totally hold on to that and try not to ever forget that. But they're also a part of my journey. So, you know, I'm there for the big things. I'm going to be there for the graduations and the honor roll and the honor society and the track meets, but I may not be there for every practice.
Sure.
I may not be there for some of the things that aren't as big. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to be there. And so it's really communicating with my family and them understanding some of the priorities and really using emotional intelligence to tie in when they're telling me what they think I want to hear versus what I know they're really feeling and making that choice.
And I want to build on what you're saying, because sometimes we have new friends, old friends, in between friends, right? And when you are doing work like this and having to set very specific boundaries and priorities for the work and for who you are and what you want to accomplish, some people may feel left out.
Yes.
Or left behind.
Yes.
And I think it's important as women, as leaders, as women of color, you know, I play a big, I'm really leaning into leading women of color, partnering with them, learning from them in the next couple of years, because I feel it's important that we create communities where we can have deeper discussions about things important to us and not feel like we're going to offend somebody or they're not going to understand or anything like that. And I think as you are accelerating and evolving, even in your own way that you lead yourself and mastering your emotions and not getting worked up about something that somebody's trying to, you know, press your buttons on, that creates disharmony. And it's not always necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that if you are going to be in the inner circle of powerful, capable, badass people, that you have to understand that sometimes they don't have time for happy hour or brunches or anything like that, because the work is what sustains and drives them, provided they're not burning out. But sometimes there's an ebb and flow, and sometimes your foot is just on the gas because it's bigger than you. And I think that having a supportive partner, having supportive siblings, having supportive parents, we're blessed and privileged to have that, because some people don't have that. But definitely to the people watching people doing that stuff, the comets.
Yeah.
I would say take the time to understand kind of what's the bigger play in their life, instead of maybe having a judgment on that, because I see it all the time.
Yeah.
But also, how can you maybe integrate in a way that you can still not feel left out or neglected or left behind?
Right.
Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also important, and I didn't mention this, is taking time for you.
Yeah.
You know, self-care is not selfish.
No.
And self-care looks differently to everyone. You know, some people, I can't take an hour to go to the gym, or I can't. Okay, but you can maybe stop for 15 minutes and read a book.
Yeah.
You can maybe stop and, you know, learn a new skill. Whatever your self-care looks like, it just matters that you're doing something that's just focusing on either your development, or even if you want to do nothing but sit down and not think or not talk for 15, 30 minutes a day, just do that. Don't look at the traditional view of what self-care means. I'm going to go out and I have a spa day every week, and that may not be your story. But maybe your story is, I'm going to go for a ride. Yeah. I'm going to go, like for me, one of the things that I do is I go to the beach on Saturday mornings to watch the sunrise. And I do not invite my family.
Me too.
I mean, I love my family to death, but it's not.
But then I feel like,
but it is not
I feel
fun.
like I got to worry about breakfast.
It is not.
And are they warm?
It's not even that for me. There's no relaxing for me at the beach when my kids are there.
The beach is my church.
All I'm doing is I have two of them. I've got two eyes, and my two eyes need to be on both of them at the same time, all the time. Yeah. So when I go by myself, I don't have to worry about their safety. I don't have to worry about somebody snapping a picture of them or taking them over there, or, them going out into the ocean. I don't have to worry about that. So I go, and when I tell you that I do not even go in the water, I just go. I have my book. Sometimes I read. I listen to music. I had been doing that for many years, but since my father passed away, I have a completely new relationship with going to the beach to watch the sunrise, because he would always say he was solar powered. My dad was like, "I'm solar powered, Cher. I'm solar powered.
We need that on shirts,
right? I'm solar powered, Cher." So he loved the sun. Yeah. And whenever he was sick and he got better, I'm back on top. And so having this I'm solar powered as this mantra my whole life.
I love that. Especially now, in Florida, we get a lot of that.
Gosh. Yes. So now when I'm at the beach, not only am I taking care of myself,
you're charging up.
I'm recognizing the magnitude of who God is, that we have this ocean that is still while the earth is there and the earth isn't flooded, and the sun comes up and wakes up the ocean, and then you start getting the waves, but I'm also reconnecting with my dad. It's like in that moment, I'm like, I feel the sun on my skin, and I'm like, Daddy, I know your energy is still here.
That's my spiritual place too. And it's funny, Saturday it was cloudy and windy and all the things, and I was tired. I mean, I had all the excuses not to go, and I just got up. It was like 6 a.m., drove to the beach, and literally, thank gosh, I'm like 15 minutes away. I took some tea, my music and it was great. Yes. And I felt like, one, I have to do this more often, because I've like become so busy. I've fallen away from it more than I wanted to. But two, I want to sort of say that people can build your own norms around what replenishes you, right? And for some people, it's a spa and a retreat and maybe the mountains or whatever. I'm a water baby, so for me, it's the ocean. But you have to sort of connect with yourself to understand, and it's going to change for seasons of life. Yeah. And it's important that as we get older, not necessarily wiser, hopefully sometimes, but
definitely wiser, Stacey. Give yourself credit.
But right,
definitely wiser.
We make the effort to make new connections, not only neurologically to what serves us, but to people that, to bring it back to the work that you do also, that do not necessarily look or think like us.
I mean, one other takeaway that I could share is really just resilience. Yeah. Right? That is something that, when I say that I am amazed by our clients. Yeah. When you come and you see all the smiles and you see them sharing their jobs and the pride that they have in the work that they do, you have no idea the trauma behind some of their stories. Don't worry, I'm totally
going to make an appointment and come with my brother and my parents.
The trauma behind some of their stories. Yeah. And what we're able to do is help them to live beyond that trauma, to rise above that trauma, to rewire their brain in a new reality of a life where people respect you and care about you and value you and want your opinion, and you have a purpose, and you influence the environment that you're in. I heard this recently, and I could tell you, I don't remember who said it, but she was saying that she's matter. Matter, is that right? She's matter. So matters are in molecules. And when you take a molecule out of a matter out of the molecule, it changes that environment. And she was talking about it from the perspective of when she is in a space, she changes the environment. And
listen, that is so true.
Oh, let me tell you, I own that because I know that in the spaces that I go and the things that I do, I am doing it with purpose, which is my other takeaway, right? I'm doing it with purpose. So I am going into spaces that I'm changing the environment. And that's what I'm working with the team at the HabCenter to do for our clients. And then understanding and helping them to understand that they impact the change in the environment. And the changes that they want to see are part of what we're trying to accomplish. So they have an influence in what that change looks like as well.
And I think, right, in the container that we come in, whatever our human shape is, we have a responsibility when we are in these positions to create that ecosystem where everybody can thrive. And it's not always easy. And I think that's why some of the basics that we talk about, and it's, if I'm coming up on 20 episodes soon, and I want to do a recap, and I will tell you, Sherry, it's much of the same principles. It's these grounded, timeless principles that hold true no matter the year or the date or the humans, whomever's mouth it's coming out of.
Yeah.
And it's basic things like it starts with me. It starts with understanding yourself and your needs and who you not only are in the world, but who you want to be. And if you're not yet that, okay, what does that look like? Right? To your point about growth mindset and right. And then the second thing is you can't really do big things without the physical body being grounded and nourished and not running on adrenaline all the time. Because then when you go in with that hectic personality, hectic mindset, you're talking quicker, your heart beats a little bit quicker, you're running late. You bring that into the environment, whether you're a teacher, a doctor. Sometimes you have doctors coming in
rushed,
and you know that they just want to like tell you how are you goodbye, and bill you $800.
Exactly.
Right? But as women, as mothers, as caretakers, as partners, as leaders, a big part of this self-autonomy and serenity has to be our first priority. And at the most simplest way is, and you're the airplane and you put air in yourself first.
Yes.
I think without that, you're absolutely right. And as a mother, I understood many years ago that to some extent I influenced the energy of the entire house.
100%.
If I come down and I'm hassled and yelling at people and get your bag and where's your badge and oh my God, we're running late and get in the car and I'm a hot mess, everybody's chaotic. Even the dogs, so imagine that amplified when you are giving a presentation, when you are querulous with your team, when you are demanding without giving. It's just this amplification, and it's so easy, physician heal thine self.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love that you say that.
Yeah. And it's really is also one of the things that we train our clients to do at the center.
Yeah.
We have a 5-acre plant nursery. Yeah. And the plant nursery not only provides, plant and garden supplies to the community, but it also serves as part of our program in our mental health. Yeah. We have that reset. Everybody has to have that reset.
I love that.
They go out and they take nature walks every single day. Yeah. So I think twice a day is the schedule that they do it. So that's
so beautiful.
They break up the monotony of their day, the anxieties and the stresses of whatever the challenges that they're dealing with, and they get grounded. And I know you've walked out to the nursery. When you walk in the nursery, it doesn't matter how leave. Doesn't matter how stressed you feel when you're going out there. It's like the moment you see the plants and you start to just smell the atmosphere, everything gets dialed all the way down.
I totally talk to trees. Okay, yes. I love trees.
Oh, I do. I put my hand
on it, and I'm like, because there's a connection to everything. I mean, underground, you've seen the roots and how everything's connected. Like trees are wise.
I talk to trees too. My kids think I'm crazy because I talk to every plant I have a name.
Well, right. There was this study. There was a study with two plants in the opposite end of a high school, and they said mean things to one plant and like really like hyped up the Riz on the other plant. Yes, I said Riz is for my son who like laughs at me when I try to use cool
and
slang.
I just shared that with my son last week, that same story, because
but it's so true.
He was questioning me talking to my plants, and I was like, listen.
No, they understand. They understand.
You know, plants need love too.
Sherry, this has been amazing.
Yes, it has.
I feel like we only met a couple of months ago, but we totally had an instant connection, and just learning more about you through this conversation.
And I don't mean to cut you, but I'm going to shout out Dan Nathanson for introducing us. He's like the super connector.
He did. He absolutely did. Yay, Dan. Am I seeing them this week? I don't know. Anyway, tell people how they can connect with the HabCenter. Kind of what do you need right now in this moment? Just tell us as a community what we can do to support you guys.
Well, as a nonprofit organization serving a special population, we always need funding.
Sure.
We always need donations to support our programs. You can visit us on habcenter.org.
HAB. Yeah.
habcenter.org. But we have two business enterprises. We have a manufacturing center and a plant nursery. And so we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for self-sustaining support. Working with our contract manufacturing. We are ISO 9001 and AS 9100 registered, so we can work in aerospace or defense. We follow an international standard of operating, and we have 100% quality in everything that we do.
So to make that really personable, relatable, when I came into the center, there was a gentleman sitting kind of in the front.
Jason.
Yes. Like, give us a real live example of what he does.
So Jason works on return material authorization for Orange Theory. So he updates the heart monitors and the iPads for Orange Theory. He takes them, he tests them, see if they need to be updated, if they need to be disposed of, identifies what the issues are. We work with the system that Orange Theory sees them directly. We also make products for ACR. We do harnessing, cables. We do kitting. We do hurricane shutter parts, compliance documents. Packaging.
I saw that.
Rebranding. We have a partnership with Clay Oil and Image Skincare, where we do bottle their cosmetics and we package their cosmetics products. And really anything that you can dream of, we can do it.
Yeah. I wanted to humanize that, because a lot of times when we're the technical expert, we say it, but I think this hopefully gives people ideas about how to support you.
Yes. And then our plant nursery, we're open to the public Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 3 p.m., 7 to 3 p.m. Come on in, buy the plants. We're looking for landscapers and property managers and procurement directors and CEOs and presidents to really make those connections.
I wish you had a Saturday morning.
We're on social media at HabCenter Boca. We're on all platforms.
Yep.
HabCenter Boca.
Yes, please like, subscribe, follow, visit, start those wheels turning about how you can sort of do something in terms of a partnership or a strategic alliance. There is nothing more worthy, I believe, than supporting humans in reaching their full potential. Like nothing.
Wonderful.
And we all do that in our own ways.
Mic drop, Stacey. Mic drop.
Thank you so much for the work that you do, for the person that you are, for the leadership that you provide in this community. I really, really deeply have so much respect and admiration for you.
I just want to shout out my grandmas, because I didn't shout them out earlier.
You
Mama
better.
Shirley and Gigi, I love you guys.
And if you're cooking, invite us. All right. So I feel like, Sherry, the stories that you shared was so much more than just resilience. It was about radical inclusion, authentic leadership, and choosing purpose over perfection. Today, you reminded us a couple of things. Community is everything. That thriving isn't solo, both from a personal perspective, but also in the larger ecosystem of things. Purpose can be born from pain, especially when you channel it to serve others. Redefining potential means we stop fixing people and start fixing the systems.
Yes.
Love that. Yes. And that sometimes showing up with a little silliness and soul is the most powerful leadership tool that we have. To everyone listening, if you've ever felt like your definition of success doesn't quite fit who you are anymore, if you're craving deeper meaning, more authenticity, or a new way to live and lead, you're not alone. You found your tribe. We'd love to welcome you into our global circle, especially for women of color. It's called the Rising Beyond Power Collective. I'll share the links below in the chat. And then subscribe to this podcast if you enjoyed sort of the leadership lessons and the authenticity sort of tips that we shared. Like, subscribe, and share with someone that you know could use a little more light in their life. And remember, you've already done the quo, and our goal is to go beyond it. So this is me, Stacey. See you next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you,
Love
Stacey.
this so much.